Welcome to Artisanal Pasta Tools. Tonight we're going to talk about a tool that came to my attention about 2 years ago. Excuse me. A client called and said she had this pasta named Fusi Istriani. I had never heard of it, and it came from the Istrian area of the north. And I asked her, I was very curious, as some clients will, it's not an unusual thing for a client to call and say, I had a pasta when I was a kid and my father had a certain tool and we don't know what happened to it and I'd like to revisit it and have I heard of it? And that was the case with this particular pasta. I had asked her if she had the tool and she said no. And I had asked her if she could remember what it looked like, and she said, yes, I could vaguely remember. And I said, would you send me a sketch? And she did. She sent me this sketch, and we talked about it for a while, and then I filed it away because our schedule is so darn busy, it takes a lot of time to develop some of these tools. Anyway, a couple of months ago, I was on the net, and I saw this pasta that this lady had referred to. I remembered, pulled out the file. I had never heard of it. I think for the most part, this was probably one of those rare pastas that was probably still hung onto by a handful of people in a very, very local area that had kind of grown organically in that particular little small region and had been lost to time. And the Encyclopedia of Pasta has put that particular pasta in its book. And there's very little else known about it. Even how it's made is rather speculative. Anyway, by way of that sketch, we started developing some prototypes that we thought would make this pasta doable. In the Encyclopedia of Pasta, they use a dowel. We saw problems with that. And we saw problems with this very spindle-like handle and a dowel extruding from its bottom. And the reason for that was that the handle moved. So that was our quest, to make something that made sense, that wouldn't roll. And voila, given a few prototypes and quite a few hours, we've come up with the tool. And this is it. In the bottom, we've put a insert of sandstone, a pearlized sandstone, and we also put a leather or faux leather strap on here because leather's stained in this case. Because you're so close with it, we didn't want it to get stained, and it's washable, and it can be taken off. Anyway, this is our deluxe version, but for purposes of this demonstration, we'll use this. Anyway, let's get about it. We'll roll ourselves out a little dough, and that'll take a minute, and then we will show you how this little thing works. It's really an extraordinary pasta. I put it on the same order that I put corsetti. Corsetti is just arouses the curiosity of almost everybody that sees that little pasta. And when you see this, you'll understand why this also arouses the curiosity of everybody that sees it. And by the way, this little machine, we get it's like we probably get an inquiry every week as to what this machine is. And this is a Imperia 220. It's used generally in restaurants, but a lot of foodies and people who take pasta making real seriously have these. I bought this before I even started my business. It's a great machine if you can afford it. And it's in your budget in your budget, I really recommend it. However, you don't have to have this to make good pasta. A good Imperia for residential use will do a fine job. I do recommend a motor. I truly recommend a motor. Now, the general setting for this is about 3. In the Encyclopedia of Pasta, they say 3. Frankly, I think 3 is perhaps a little thick. I would go, and I did go, 2.5. Now what we do here is very simply get your cutter knife, and I've mentioned this little knife before, which I just like. We also will be, let me see here. Now, what this is essentially triangles. Okay? That's what we start out. That's our beginning form, our triangles. Don't waste your pasta. Always save your pasta because you can rework it in your machine. It's absolutely good. Just don't let it dry out. Okay, so what we do is we cut squares. And there's 100 ways you can do this. But what we're really after are triangles. Okay? So there you go. That's all it takes. Cut squares. Don't worry about the triangles. The triangles scare some people. I think it's a lot more difficult. So just make a square and cut it in half at each angle, at each point. Now this particular pasta, because of its form, is particularly friendly to a chunky sauce, but you can use anything with it, like you can with most pastas. I think there are certain pastas that are more adaptable to certain types of sauces. What you see is, you can pick it up, this is lying flat. And that was our first challenge when we developed this tool, or tried to make sense of the sketch that was provided us. It was wiggling, and that made no sense to us. We refined that, so we worked on the angle and worked on it and worked on it until we finally got it right. Then we found that the dowel, it was essential that that dowel meet the base just as the bottom of the handle meets the base, so that you have this complete stability. Okay, now the way we begin with this is we just simply get our tool, lay it in about the center of the triangle, bring the point in, let it rest on the dowel. You get the point, the other point, and you get the other point, and you press down. And you have what's called a Fusi Istriani. And it's a real, if you look at it, you can see how that would take so much dough. Now, there are all kinds of variations of that. You can make them bigger. If you want a much bigger form, you can make it bigger. But the idea is essential. This, if you can see right here, there's a bevel right here, and that rests right on top. So that's actually holding the pasta. That pasta is not going to move on you. Okay? Bring that point up. Bring that over the point. Bring the other end over the point. Press. And again, you have this little, which I call a brief. Now, this is made typically with an egg dough pasta, which makes perfect sense, right? Most of you have probably listened to some of my other videos, and you know that in the North, unlike the South, at least historically, pasta was made with egg and flour, and the South was made with flour and water, primarily semolina. This is made with a finer cut of flour. That's essentially it. It's a great little tool. It's a great little conversation piece. We had fun trying to develop it. Like all of these things, it appears to take a lot of time, but once you get going, you make all your pasta, and you can run through these things quite easily. And they stick. I have cooked several batches of these, and it's amazing now, I always get a kick when people say, when you make fresh pasta, there you go. When you make fresh pasta, it'll only take 2 or 3 minutes. But be very careful of that kind of standardized cooking time, which I see in all the books. If you make a very fine pepperdeli or a thin ribbon-like pasta that's thin, yes, 2-3 minutes will be fine. But when you go into something a little bit thicker like this, don't be afraid to boil it a little bit. And take it out occasionally, take one out and test it. But I don't find it extraordinary to cook this 6-7 minutes. So depending on your dough, depending on the thickness set by the machine or the roll, that will determine what your cooking time is. Okay, let's do another one. We want to do, a few of these, just so that you can get the idea. Again, halfway up the triangle, get the point, bring it on top of the end, get the side of the triangle, put it on that point, and you get the other side and put it on that point, and then you stick them together. And it doesn't hurt to give it a little shot like that. And there you go. You've got the perfect little Fusi Istriani. That's essentially it. I think that, with a little practice, these can go pretty quickly. It's a fascinating little pasta, fascinating little tool. I'm just going to show you very, very briefly, take but 1 minute to show you the selection that we have in the event that you're interested in it. And as I mentioned, this is just a great little tool for a dinner gift or a foodie, a Christmas stocking gift. It's at a price point very similar to the Piadina pin, and you can have a lot of fun with it. It's a piece of history. Okay, and I told you we'd put together a small selection so that you can see the options that you have. And I mentioned to you earlier there was a deluxe version of the Fusi maker. And I don't mean to exaggerate the importance of it, but what we have here is this is the standard. There's nothing wrong with it. As a matter of fact, I think it looks very pretty. Some people prefer it over the deluxe. It's just very simple. It's made exactly the same way. It will do exactly the same thing. We use solid brass, solid copper, and polished aluminum, all solid. These are not tubular. And then they're just inserted. This is the style that we have for the standard version, and we can do that. Now this would be the available woods, which either be cherry, maple, and sometimes walnut. Now here we have what we call the deluxe version, which, as I mentioned earlier to you, it has the same insert, all solid, pretty much the same design. Every design will be a tad different because they're all done by hand. These are really artisanal little works. Now, on the front end of this, or the back end, you'll see an insert. That insert is a pearlized sandstone. We use different colors. This looks just great. This dark kind of charcoal on the maple. But we use different colors, whatever the wood can handle, because some woods have different grains and they look better with different colors. But these are all hand done, hand inserted, and there's quite a bit of time involved in that. Also, we didn't have it on these two versions, but on this version, and they will be on this version, these are the two deluxe, all the deluxe will have a tie. And the tie is made out of a faux lace. Looks just like leather. We tried leather in the beginning, but we found that leather stained and it was more difficult to remove. This can be removed if you don't want it on, but a lot of our clients love to have their tools displayed. So that was the reason we went through and made this a little bit more ornate. And they are nice looking. Now, all the deluxe, they always come with a nice bag, as you can see here. We have green. We're doing some in yellow now and some in purple. Again, they have these little strings. So just to give you an idea what they look like. So if this is a gift or when you receive it, this is pretty much what you will see. And now, I don't think you could give anybody anything much sweeter than that. It's practical, it's aesthetic, and it's functional. A lot of the folks that buy our product are always referring to us as artists. We're not artists. I don't want that term applied. We just are rural craftsmen with a love and a passion for things Italian, particularly things in the culinary world. And so many of our clients share that. You don't have to be Italian American or have that heritage to appreciate it. And we appreciate all the good comments that people make, and we hope this will be a nice addition to our line. So thank you very much, and enjoy the journey in history. Thank you.